Pato O'Ward will punch the throttle and get things underway. And here at Thermal, we are about to go racing through the final corner. McLaren side by side, and now they go, and now we are racing. O'Ward to the lead. Palou up the inside, takes a little look at Christian Lundgaard, late on the brakes for your reigning champion Alex Palou. It's all very clean through the entire field, a little bunching at the rear, but Pato O'Ward has done everything he needed to do.
It's the battle for second right now. Palou on the outside, Lundgaard on the inside. He's going to take that spot now. Colton Herta trying to line up as we see. That's Marcus Ericsson in the Bryan machine for Andretti going wide. Tons of places lost.
See how slow Ericsson had to go offline as McLaren stays 1-2. Christian Lundgaard just holding off Alex Palou there out of turn one. Single file for the first 7, starting to go too wide as Ferrucci working the high side, coming out of turn 6 to that long back straightaway. There's damage to one of the Prema cars.
So riding on board with Will Power, that's Pilot ahead of us in the Prema.
22nd position on the start. Oh, just drove right into the back. That wasn't his teammate, was it?
It was his teammate.
Scott McLaughlin and Devlin DiFrancesco. Looks like Devlin heavy into the side of McLaughlin, and then McLaughlin spinning. That's well before the the start flag.
Well before the start flag. Let's see, you're going to see the 30 of Devlin DiFrancesco up the inside, just sort of understeers into McLaughlin. They both get offline onto that dusty part. They both spin.
And there's dust on the track, guys.
Yeah, someone's gone off down there at, is it 9? I think that's turn 9, and that is Marcus Ericsson.
Let's see what happened. Just gets wide of the line, off into that light blue. You see all the dirt and marbles, and now he's just praying he doesn't hit a fence. Take a look at the move. Nolan Siegel getting passed by Will Power on the back straight, and Power had to go to the dirty side.
I like that. Nolan getting his elbows out a little bit, making it a little bit tougher on the two-time champion Will Power. Here he is on the board. You see him hit the button on his steering wheel. The push-to-pass activated. Hybrid being deployed. Chevy versus Chevy down into the brake zone. Clean, executed, good hard racing. You love to see that.
There goes Louis Foster on Siegel and overcooks it. So potentially Louis Foster locking up a little bit as we were just talking about it. And they're side by side once again.
And Christian Rasmussen trying to get in on the action as well. Has a look up the inside of Foster, has to duck out of it. The Englishman, Louis Foster, was on the push to pass, trying to make that move. Feels perhaps Nolan Siegel now under a bit of pressure, perhaps. And now he goes. Rasmussen up the inside of Louis Foster. That's a lovely move and gets it done.
You saw the left front lock up from Christian Rasmussen, and then that can allow us to get back to that Dallara cutaway car as Rasmussen defends. They might have touched there, wheel to wheel. This is a fierce battle.
Look at this battle here. Nolan Siegel once again getting the elbows out against a 6-time champion.
He did it with Will Power, a 2-time champion earlier, but the 6-timer getting it done, flexing some muscle there.
This is going to be the most important stop of the day for the 10. He's going to have a huge push to the end. He's got about 11 seconds to try and catch up to Pato O'Ward. Let's see if he can do it.
All right, so as Alex Palou goes out, remember, just a few laps ago, he was battling with Christian Lundgaard. The question is, how fast has Lundgaard been since the last stop? There you see Lundgaard. Remember, Palou will have more speed. Lundgaard gets ahead.
He has to make it work. He has to make it work now. He's exactly where he didn't want to be, which is stuck behind Lundgaard again.
Pato O'Ward had a perfect pit stop from his McLaren team. Looking very chill in the cockpit. He knows he has a comfortable gap, and there you see it. Second place, Lundgaard, not even close. Alex Palou, though, very close.
There he goes, up the inside.
inside.
Alex Palou with the move on Christian Lundgaard finally, but Lundgaard gets it back alongside him, will edge him over the curbs. Side by side now on the run down, out of 1 and into 2. It's a right-hander. Palou will have the line and takes the position, but no! Lundgaard back again and up on the inside of him. Wonderful driving from these two as Palou tries now around the outside, and this will all lead them on through the switchbacks and onto the back section. Palou going one way and the other, and now up on the inside. Palou against Lundgaard. Has he? I think he has.
A quadruple cross-up. I've never seen that in IndyCar. 4 corners in a row.
It's not done yet. Both drivers on push to pass. Both drivers with dirty tires. Lundgaard now tries to do it. Palou with the block on the inside. Can he hold him? Yes, he can. It'll be hard for Christian to come back now, especially with those harder tires. And now it's all about head down, eyes forward, trying to close the 9-second gap, 9.5 to Pato O'Ward running in the lead.
Palou is coming for Pato O'Ward. Down the backstretch now, tucked up underneath him. O'Ward goes to defend. Palou has such speed and he's late on the brakes, up on the inside, and that will be the lead of the race for Alex Palou, who started third this afternoon. It's power on Rossi. He's got through the bit very much between his teeth. Will Power is on an absolute charge. This then a replay of Will Power's move on Alexander Rossi. Not an easy one. He's going to go around the outside of him, is he? He is. That's a tough place to pass. It has been 5 years since a driver has won back-to-back races at the start of the season, but Alex Palou will do precisely that. He won in St. Pete. He wins at Thermal. Alex Palou makes it back-to-back victories to start the 2025 season.
Yeah! Woo-hoo! Let's go, boys! Oh my goodness. Thank you guys. You guys are the best.
Up next, it's the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, Sunday, April 13th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
To another fine episode here of the Push to Pass podcast. I am Derek Vance, and what a interesting race we had there on Sunday, and we're going to talk about that here for the next hour or so. Obviously, you see the other two gentlemen here as well. We'll bring them in here momentarily, but obviously, like we talked about, we are going to discuss and break down what was the Thermal Club IndyCar Grand Prix. I'm going to have my 5 takeaways, and I think looking at Michael's article that he published yesterday, I think he's going to disagree with one of them. I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger a little bit. Also, too, we had a little bit of a spat in the pits. We'll if you haven't seen that video yet, quite a spicy interaction between Scott McLaughlin and Devlin DeFrancesca. We also got interviews from all 3 actually podium winners. We'll play them here as the show unfolds. We'll show you the results, obviously point standings through 2 races, and then the bottom half of the hour we're going to have special guest Archie O'Reilly, journalist and co-host of the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast, is going to be joining us. And then around the bottom of the hour, as usual here the last couple of years, our betting expert for people that are into IndyCar betting, Mike, is going to be back on the show to recap the bets that he placed this past weekend at Thermal Club. But before we get into anything else, again, I want to bring in both of the other co-hosts of the show, Josh and Michael. Fellas, good to be back. Good to be able to talking racing this week.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was an exciting race. Well, I won't say exciting. It was a race. We'll go with that. But lots of. I can't wait to hear Michael's takeaways, his winners and losers, and also see what contradicts Vance's Derek's top 5 takeaways. Can't wait to hear. And put my input in on it.
Yeah, an interesting weekend of racing. Yeah, Derek, I'll be excited to debate about the differences we have here. So let's have a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to hear what Michael's differences are, and Josh to play the referee here as we go over these. And then also too, I do want to make mention. I know you can't see him on camera, but do have a special guest in studio as well. Cole Clellan is here listening in, first time listening to the podcast. So hopefully he is able to maybe become a little bit more knowledgeable when it comes to IndyCar down the line. But let's get into what obviously took place this past Sunday there at Thermal, California, at the Thermal IndyCar, Grand Prix. Let's get into my 5 takeaways, and then obviously can't wait to hear what Michael and Josh have to say about them. The first one that I have, and I don't think that's the slide I want there. Let's try this again. There we go. That's the slide I want. Technology can't live with it, can't live without it. The first takeaway that I have, first and foremost, obviously, congratulations to Alex Palou and the whole number 10 DHL crew for their second straight win of 2025. His 13th of his career this past Sunday. My 5 takeaways, number 5, and actually I wrote about this a little bit earlier today. It's been quite a hot button topic since last Sunday's race. But fellas, do we think that Thermal Club is going to be a long-term solution on the schedule? I mean, we do know that the IndyCar has come out and announced that around this time next year, IndyCar is going to be going to Arlington for the Grand Prix there. So is there going to be room on the schedule in 2026 for this race? Obviously, I know Josh and Michael touched on it a lot last week in the preview show. If you want to go back and watch that, a limited number of tickets were sold, around 5,000, and at $475 a piece. Obviously, that's a little steep, especially if you are a blue-collar IndyCar fan. You have a choice to make. Are you going to spend that hard-earned money, that $475? That's just to get in. That's not saying for staying or for lodging, for getting there, et cetera, et cetera. I strongly believe that the inaugural event next year in Arlington is going to bring in more than 5,000 people, probably a little less expensive than what the Thermal Club's going to be. So outside of, and I think either Michael or Josh touched on this in our group text, but outside of the tire strategy, I beg the question, was this really an exciting race to watch? And is this going to be kept on the schedule in 2026?
Well, to answer your question, if IndyCar wants to keep it on their schedule, they'll most certainly find a way to keep it on the schedule. Should they keep it on the schedule is the better question. I don't know what the experience was for those 5,000 that would have bought tickets to the race. I mean, in watching it, this is a unique track because there is houses built all around it, and I mean houses and condos and different parts. As I'm watching the replay right now, I mean, got it up on my TV, and it just, I don't know. One of the great things I love watching on TV is the reaction of the fans, and I can't see fans. I don't see fans in Thermal. I don't see them up cheering, doing anything. I mean, I know you can't hear them, but just to see the fans out there cheering is always an interesting thing. And this track is, I don't want to say it's just a test driving track, but it just doesn't seem like it just doesn't seem like it fits into the IndyCar circuit, in my opinion. But to answer your question, if IndyCar wants it, they'll make it. I'm always up for more races because I think sometimes we have a very large layoff, and adding more races can make those layoffs a little bit shorter. But should they? I don't think. I think they should move on from Thermal. It was a good experiment. I just don't think it's going to pay off for them.
Yeah, so I actually put in my winners and losers, I put Thermal in the loser category. Social media went crazy, and that was before the blackout that happened for about 20 minutes. Race was caution free, which sometimes isn't a bad thing. Asked Will Power, he probably would have wanted a caution to bunch a field up at some point. So checking with social media today, I was chatting with a few people about this. The one good thing that really hasn't been addressed with thermal is that the layout of the track. If I think Derek, last week we had an image, and if we could have pulled that up today, it would have been great. But there's so many different layouts. There's different parts of the track that could be added to make it a little different. In chatting with someone earlier today on X, he mentioned that there's really not a lot of racetracks to go to in March, in April. The end of March, beginning of April. So thermal could work, and we definitely need more races. I think we'll talk about that here in a little bit. We definitely need more races, so thermal is definitely an option. Now, how do we make it a little bit more interesting? How do we get more fans there? If you bring more fans, honestly, without any support series, I don't think that was really addressed this weekend either. The IndyCar series was the only one there. There was no support series. There was no Indy Next. There was no Trans Am series or anything like that. So, people are paying $475 to go into thermal. They're getting to see the IndyCar series. That's it. So, the only real good thing that I seen at thermal, honestly, was Will Power passing half the field, and then that battle we seen with Alex Palou and Christian Lundgaard. Besides that, oh man, not much to talk about, honestly, as far as on-track action. So, as far as thermal on the schedule next year, like Josh iterated, if IndyCar wants to go back and it works for thermal, then they'll be back. And with it being a race on the schedule, I know we've all talked about that. We need more races on the schedule, so especially early in the season.
Great points by both of you, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see moving forward into 2026 when that schedule is announced. If IndyCar and the Thermal Club executives are able to iron out some type of deal to keep that place on, so you break up that gap, as Michael alluded to there, from St. Petersburg to Long Beach for sure. Next takeaway that I had has to do with Scott McLaughlin. I know him and Devlin DeFrancesca got into a little bit of a spat, and if you haven't seen that spicy spat, we'll show that here momentarily. But it was unusual for me to see with IndyCar going to a road or street course. Usually you see Scott McLaughlin in the Thirsty Threes are up front and they're fighting for a victory. But this past weekend was definitely a totally different story. You see McLaughlin finish P27 and 12 laps down. Definitely not the finish that the Thirsty Threes and Team Penske was obviously looking for. And obviously it's going to be interesting to see if or how Scott McLaughlin bounces back in Long Beach. Your guys' thoughts on Scott McLaughlin's day this past Sunday?
Michael, why don't you take that one first?
Oh, yes. Poor Scott. He's in my loser category of the week, unfortunately, and he's my championship pick. So we gotta turn the Thirsty Threes around and get them sped up. But no, you're right. Him and Devlin got into an altercation to begin the race, actually before the green flag even flew. And that could have contributed to his hybrid issue, overheating. Sounds like there was a lot of hybrid issues this past weekend. I also had that in my loser category. So this is really the first major race weekend we've seen hybrid issues. So we could probably talk about that here in a little bit as well. But yeah, that first initial incident with Devlin and getting on the back foot to begin with really didn't help Scott or the Team Penske team, really. So yeah, how will he bounce back at Long Beach? It's going to be an uphill climb to try and save his championship battle at this point in time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The hybrid issue was a big thing. I have my own thoughts about why the hybrids were failing at an alarming rate this week, or having trouble with them. We'll get into that later, but Scotty McLaughlin is always he's always a fiery person, and the altercation, if you didn't see it between him and Devlin, was interesting. I was surprised it didn't come to maybe some shoving, but they were professional and they just yelled at each other. I love seeing that, as I said, spiciness between the drivers. You don't get to see that a lot in this series. It's mainly very gentlemanly and very professional. But to see the emotions come out, and Scott McLaughlin was great to see. Just shows that how passionate he is. That he felt like he was wrong. Devlin felt like he didn't do anything wrong. So it was not a great day for the Thirsty Threes, but I'm sure McLaughlin and his teammates are going to regroup, sit back, and figure out what to do.
Well, if what we were talking about there with Scott McLaughlin and his little spat with Devlin DeFrancesca, if you have not seen it yet or caught it on social media, let's play this clip here. Sit back and enjoy.
You moron? Really?
Yeah, I am.
What are you doing? We're supposed to be side by side in turn 15. You close the door. Why? We're supposed to be side by side.
You gotta drive
no,
through
we're
for a
supposed
reason.
to be side.
You gotta drive through for a reason, Dad. For a reason, you gotta drive
Really?
through.
We'll show you the video. I'll show you the video.
Okay, show you the video.
Pull up the video.
Show me the
Pull up the
video.
video.
You gotta drive through for a reason. We're not even green.
Yeah, you beside me.
Oh, okay. I'll drive beside you. I'm on the outside.
Definitely between those two gentlemen, to say the least. It'll be interesting to see if this spat continues at Long Beach, or if IndyCar does correct both of these two behaviors. Again, yet remains to be seen. Third takeaway that I had from this weekend, and kudos, I think, to Alexander Rossi starting anew with Ed Carpenter Racing here in Indianapolis. But I think a change of scenery has obviously done wonders. Just ask Alexander Rossi. After leaving Arrow McLaren this past season, he found his way to Ed Carpenter Racing, new sponsors, new branding, and so far, again, I know it's a small sample size, but in 2 races so far, give Alexander Rossi 2 top 10s. He scored a top 10 at Thermal this past weekend and a top 10 in St. Pete. So hopefully he's able to continue this momentum into Long Beach. But again, kudos to Alexander Rossi. First 2 starts for Ed Carpenter Racing, 2 top 10 finishes.
Definitely. Ed Carpenter Racing's been looking for someone like this that they can start to build their team off of. And I know Rossi leaving Arrow and heading over to Ed Carpenter. Some people may have looked at it as a downgrade in teams, just due to probably the financial backing that the 2 teams have. But Alexander Rossi, he's gone over there and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna prove everyone wrong. I'm gonna prove Arrow wrong, why they didn't bring me back, why they replaced me, and I'm gonna prove the whole IndyCar series wrong that wrote me off. I know there were several people that I've talked to in the past that didn't think Rossi was gonna be very good with Ed Carpenter, but he is slowly but surely, race by race, just 2 races in, proving them wrong.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Rossi's leadership and skills have really proved valuable for Ed Carpenter Racing. I was one of those people. I didn't know that it would be a good move, but with some financial backing coming in and new sponsorship, that helps. Being able to get upgraded cars and chassis, those things kind of help. So, really excited about the progression that Ed Carpenter Racing has made. You kind of touched on him leaving or getting the boot from Arrow McLaren. At what point do we question how long poor Nolan Siegel is going to be at Arrow McLaren? Because things aren't looking too promising so far early on in the season for him.
Very, very valid point, Michael. Interesting take there, and I think what you just said there. Obviously, it's early, but is Nolan Siegel on the proverbial hot seat over at Arrow McLaren? Definitely remains to be seen. Speaking of Arrow McLaren, and I'm going to throw this out before Michael jumps me for it. I think this is where me and Michael's opinion is going to differ here. My second takeaway, or my fourth takeaway, excuse me, from Sunday has to do with Arrow McLaren, in my opinion. And again, I am a huge Arrow McLaren fan. Let me put my fandom, to the side. I am a huge fan of the program there, but in my eyes, to me, Arrow McLaren is still not good enough. And again, that's just my opinion. I know Michael's probably going to differ here, but they found themselves at the top of the timing charts after the second practice Saturday. They end up securing positions 1 and 2 for the race on Sunday, just to be outdone in the end by the great Alex Palou. Pato O'Ward, as dominant as he was, leading 51 of the 65 laps, but yet when it was crunch time, when it was time to close, Alex Palou showed why he was the class of the field and why it's Alex Palou versus the rest of the field. So my question is here, will Arrow McLaren ever close that gap between them and Chip Ganassi Racing and Team Penske?
Oh, I think that Arrow McLaren is on a steady incline. I'm going to use this analogy. Back in the mid '90s, the Indiana Pacers were the second best team in the Eastern Conference several times. And who the number one team was? Michael Jordan. I am comparing Alex Palou to Michael Jordan. It is hard to beat Michael Jordan. It's hard to beat Alex Palou, and I think race by race, even though the results they're not getting wins, I think they're gaining momentum on them. I think it's only a matter of time before Pato O'Ward is able to not get passed by a Palou or someone else. But I'm disagreeing with you. I think that this was a good weekend for Arrow. They got, like you said, they got 1-2 on the starting grid. They got a second place out of Pato. So I think this was a good weekend for Arrow, despite not coming away with the victory. They did come away with added momentum, in my opinion.
Okay, Derek. This is gonna be fun. So Arrow McLaren, you're right. They started 1-2, finished 2-3. Both valid points. And I will tell you what this race come down to. It had nothing to do with the drivers. It come down to the pit box. Barry Wanzer for Alex Palou, great strategist, and held those red tires to the end. That was the winning call. That at the end of the day, Arrow McLaren, the one problem with them is why in the world were both let's see, how do I say this? How were both of their cars on the exact same tire strategy? That is the biggest question we should ask, because with starting 1-2, I mean, this is a team that's in Formula One that has the most interesting form of tire procedures and things like that. they always split strategy. They always do something different. So that's the big question looking over it again. But as far as the race weekend, I think it's a big win for Arrow McLaren. I think it's a big win for McLaren as a team. Both their Formula One drivers were on the podium. 2 of their 3 IndyCar drivers are on the podium. And Josh, you bring up Pato. I think we need to start looking at Christian Lundgaard, because Lundgaard is going to give Pato a run for his money.
I knew when I brought this up, I knew Michael would have a interesting take after seeing his winners and losers this weekend. We'll get back to my last takeaway here momentarily, but I do see our special guest of the hour is now joining us here on the Push to Pass podcast. Huge thank you for taking time out of his busy schedule to join us. If you don't know this individual, he is a journalist. He is also a co-host on the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast. Definitely go out and check it out. A huge thank you for Archie O'Reilly to join us here for a few minutes. Archie, again, first and foremost, a huge thank you for joining us. And for people that may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. But yeah, for people who may not know about me or what DIVEBOMB do specifically as well, we like to think we are helping to bring IndyCar coverage to across the pond. We are obviously from the United Kingdom. I'm from Manchester, England. So we like to appeal to quite a different audience in that respect, really tap into the growing audience that IndyCar has internationally, and with the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast as well. I'm turning 20 next month, so I'm still pretty young, and we like to tap into a real different audience. And I think that's what makes what we do so special. And it's nice to know that our coverage over here in the UK has made its way stateside as well.
Yeah, it absolutely has. And to Josh and Michael, just think to be young and 20 again. If we knew then what we know now, we would be a dangerous duo. But nonetheless, Archie, we were talking about the day that Arrow McLaren had this past Sunday. I thought, it's kind of either shit or get off the pot. In my opinion, they had the opportunity to go 1-2. They started the race 1-2. They had the opportunity to go 1-2, but again, as the maybe potentially the new GOAT of IndyCar, Alex Palou was able to not only pass Christian Lundgaard, but obviously to overtake Pato O'Ward for the victory as well. But you got to be thinking, if you're Arrow, man, it's either now or never.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me like that was a step forward to them. I think obviously getting their first front row lockout in qualifying was a pretty big deal. And the fact that they are disappointed with a double podium finishing second and third in the race, I think it does feel like a step forward. I think the big thing with Arrow McLaren is, and Pato O'Ward spoke about this over the weekend in the post-qualifying press conference, that he's really not had another guy on the team who has been there at the front with him, whereas your Penske's, your Ganassis have at least 2 cars always fighting at the front. Arrow McLaren haven't had that. Pato, I think the best result of any of his teammates during his time at Arrow McLaren has been 8th in the standings. He's never been beaten by a teammate. And it really feels like he's been the guy at Arrow McLaren, and nobody else has come close. And finally with Lundgaard, I think what he's doing after, in only his second race for the team is super impressive. And he took the fight to O'Ward, and to be fair to Pato, it feels like they're both driving each other on, and Pato stood up to that challenge and beat Lundgaard when it mattered over the weekend. But ultimately, it was just destruction from Palou. And the way that I look at Alex Palou is that he feels like he's in control of races, even if he's not in the lead. And that felt like a thrashing of a victory, even though, it was last 15 laps when he eventually took the lead. So what he does is just so impressive. He gives his opponents a false sense of security. Pato looked like the dominant winner, didn't really misstep at all himself, yet Palou just reels him in and really demoralizes him with just a brutal final stint, just like we saw in St. Pete as well.
Yeah, definitely. You can't. I don't know what any more can be said. Obviously, about Alex Palou and just the zone that he is in. Obviously, the first two races, he is laser focused on being that next back to back to back NTT IndyCar champion. Obviously, Dario Franchitti was the last one to do that, and usually historically, Alex Palou gets off to slow starts, and he's got to dig out of a little bit of a provincial hole. But now, if you're the other drivers in the paddock, and you see Alex Palou has come out and swept the first two races, you got to be thinking, if we don't get this guy now, the points race could be over by the beginning of summer.
I mean, it's ominous, isn't it? Really, I mean, you look at the races coming up as well, and you think, yeah, Palou could probably win any of the next 5, 6, 7 races. I think the way that I look at it is what he is producing at the moment in IndyCar feels like something really rare. It feels like he just, with every performance, just puts himself into further into some really kind of rarefied air. And it's very rare you see drivers dominate like this in IndyCar. I think Palou has brought a sense of inevitability that we're not really that used to, because IndyCar is obviously famed for being so competitive and so unpredictable, but Palou has brought a sense of predictability in some ways. And I feel like just with every new race, he's breaking new ground. And just the way he started the season is kind of just summed up Palou. And he's got a 39-point lead in the championship after 2 races, which is best part of a race win in the lead already, which is pretty incredible. And yeah, as I said, just the manner in which he wins races is pretty brutal for the competition. But it's funny when you have domination like this in sport, whether it's a team, whether it's an individual, it's very easy to look and think, God, that's boring. It's very predictable. But I think with Palou, because this is something we just so scarcely see in IndyCar, I'm actually just taking a step back and just thinking, wow, you've got to just appreciate what you're seeing, because this is greatness unfolding, I think, before our very eyes.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think you would definitely hit the proverbial hammer on the head there, talking about Alex Palou. Josh, Michael, the floor is yours for questions for Archie.
Welcome on, Archie. We're excited to have you on. I just have a couple questions. It's got nothing to do with thermal. We as a podcast here also trying to get the IRL IndyCar outreach out there into the United States. How is IndyCar looked at overseas, over the pond near you where you are? I know Formula One's big over in Europe, but what do they think about what's the pulse over there of IndyCar over there?
It's an interesting one. We get the coverage via Sky Sports, which is our big kind of sports provider over in the UK. And I think one thing that I have noticed, and it's something that I've noticed with IndyCar generally, is there's a really nice kind of community feel. I think at this point it's still a pretty small community over here at this point. I think obviously it's taken a regression from, what some people may look at as the glory days of popularity. But no, it is a good community. I think when you look on social media during races, for instance, there's always fans from over in the UK interacting, but ultimately Formula One is the dominant force over in the UK. And, I, as a podcast being from the UK on the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast, we've got decent relationships with, your likes of Louis Foster and Toby Sowery. And it's been interesting kind of to say, just take Louis Foster, for instance, to speak to him and how IndyCar came onto his radar. And even as like a guy that's grown up in racing, he didn't really know about IndyCar until he took a proper deep look. So I think that's ultimately work needs to be done there. I think with what Fox is bringing to the series, they rightly so, I guess, because you've got to phase, your attempted growth. They are really focusing on the US, and I get that. I think IndyCar has got to get back to where it was and beyond in the US before it really starts focusing on growing in the UK and internationally. But there is a fan base there. There's a real foundation there. I think, we would all selfishly love a race over in the UK at Brands Hatch or one of your iconic circuits. But it feels some way away. But there is an audience over here for sure.
That was going to be my next question. Do you think if a race went over to Europe, one of those two tracks, do you think that it would maybe that would help branch out and get some eyes that usually are not on it over in Europe?
Oh, for sure. I mean, motorsport, obviously in the US, the whole boom of Formula One, especially with Drive to Survive, a lot of that's been attributed to. We've seen such a growth of F1 in the US, and same applies over in the UK, really. Motorsport has become massive. Like, I will speak to friends of mine, and going back 5 years, F1 or motorsport wasn't really on the agenda, but it's massive now. And I think all that, motorsport fans or F1 fans from over in the UK need to see is one IndyCar race, and you will be gripped. And if it's put, before them and say, I don't know, IndyCar goes and races at Silverstone, people will go and watch, and people will love it because the environment surrounding IndyCar, there's that openness, and I guess that kind of harks back to why Thermal felt a little bit out of place, because it felt quite exclusive, it felt quite elitist, whereas IndyCar is really, I love it for the fact it's so open, and I think that's something that really appeals as a fan, and just the racing as well. Formula One races can be very processional, and IndyCar's not. I don't agree that IndyCar should be comparing itself with F1. But there's such a big audience there of race fans in the UK that they should really all they have to do is watch one IndyCar race. And as I said, they will be engrossed. They will love it because it is pure racing. It's constant action. No processions. It's constant action. It's old school. It's raw, and it's brilliant.
Okay. My last question, it has nothing to do with IndyCar. Man U or Man City?
I am a massive Manchester United fan. I went to my first United game when I was, going back to about 2010. My family has a season ticket between myself and some of my cousins, so I'm there at Old Trafford regularly. I go to university in Manchester as well, so I get to see Old Trafford most days in the week. It's pretty beautiful. Tough times at the moment, but yeah, United fan.
Okay, thanks, Archie.
No worries. Thank you very much.
So I have a few questions. First, thank you for coming on. I love your accent. My mom is Scottish, so I have cousins still in the United Kingdom. So my big thing is I watch Formula One. I love it. I got into the Drive to Survive thing and really took off from there. If I look at a Formula One weekend, the place is packed. They make it so entertainment wise. Is that something that IndyCar should focus on? Not so much the entertainment, but how do you get that many fans to a race? Because I mean, they sell out all 3 days.
I mean, it's the $1 million question, right? I mean, I've been. I've not been a motorsport fan for all of my life. I've been brought up around football, and it was kind of during the COVID pandemic that I actually got into Formula One, not through Drive to Survive, weirdly, although I did watch that soon after, but through the video game, which is, again, something that IndyCar lacks. And then soon after that, I kind of got into IndyCar through, it was when Grosjean moved over, actually, and I was gripped from the outset. But no, I've been to Silverstone the last few years, and I think what stands out for the British Grand Prix, the F1, is it is an event. It is a big event, and I think you look at some of IndyCar's most successful events in recent years. It's what's been put on at Iowa, for instance, and the 500 is built up as a massive event. So it almost feels like IndyCar needs more of those tentpole events. Obviously, Arlington's coming next year, and it's evident that through that they are trying to raise the profile with these big events. And I don't want kind of IndyCar to lose the fact that its racing is amazing and its racing product is the headline. But I do think that, they can definitely take lessons from what F1 has done in terms of building it up as an event. And I think what Fox have done, for instance, with their commercials and really showcasing drivers' personalities rather than just showing clips of the cars racing at IMS in a 500, for instance, which is great. It's exhilarating, but you don't get to look kind of behind the visor. And I think what, Fox are starting to do is they're starting to introduce you to the personalities, and that's where the connection comes. And I think that's where the fans become gripped, and that's where, you can make it more than just the on-track stuff. It can become an event and a spectacle where you have superstars. And that's, again, one of the big appeals I think that people have seen in F1, and hopefully is something that will start to happen with IndyCar.
Okay, awesome. And then I have two questions. I'll put them together. So do you get commercials during the IndyCar race? I watched the F1 races here, and I love the commercial free. And then I see your McLaren sweater. So who's your F1 team that you follow, if you do?
Yeah, so we do not get commercials. We basically, you have an international feed for IndyCar, and we have a guy called Tom Gaymore who does he basically fills when Fox goes to ad breaks. We continue to get pictures, which is great, and I guess that's a bonus of being overseas consuming IndyCar. But yeah, Tom Gaymore, he fills in the gaps, does a very good job at that. That's great because we don't miss anything. And yeah, so this was actually brought from Silverstone. To be honest, I'm as a budding journalist, I actually do take it very much like I'm quite impartial. I don't really strongly root for anyone in motorsport. Like IndyCar, I'm very much just, I love covering the series and telling the stories of the series. F1, I mean, it's the Brits. This is a Lando Norris hoodie. So I bought that when I was at Silverstone a couple of years ago. I guess it's backing the Brits. I'll always have an affinity for the Brits, and obviously in IndyCar as well. It's nice to see Louis Foster winning the Indy Next Championship, and you've always got a soft spot there. So I don't specifically have a team as such. I guess McLaren is a proper British team, obviously a British driver as well in F1. So yeah, that's my answer to that.
Well, once again, I appreciate you coming on and giving your insight from the UK for sure.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable. Thank you.
Arch, I know our time here is coming to an end, but I would be remiss if I didn't have you tell the people out there where not only they can find your journalist work, but then the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast that you are a co-host on as well.
So the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast it's available on all of your podcast platforms. You can also watch it on YouTube as well. We've got a few good interviews have gone out lately, actually. After an off season of trying to nail interviews, we finally got a few in a bit of a flurry. So yeah, just search the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast on any of your regular listening platforms or on YouTube. And for the written work, just Google DIVEBOMB Motorsport Magazine and you'll be able to find that. My social media, my X account is on screen as well, Archie O'Reilly _. But yeah, that's where you can find us.
Arch, good stuff as always. Huge thank you for stopping by. Definitely look forward, potentially maybe this season, maybe the 500, to catch up and meet hopefully. But again, a huge thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know the time zone has to take a toll on you, staying up so late. But again, a huge thank you for joining us. Definitely look forward to talking to you down the road.
Hey, I'm used to the time zones now. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Arch.
Good stuff there, folks. Go check him out on social media. Go check out his work on the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast, and then his writing as well. I think you'll definitely enjoy that. Before we bring Mike on to let him talk about the bets that he made this past weekend, we do need to thank a couple sponsors of the show. So let's do that here real quickly. As always, a huge thank you first and foremost to Always Ready 1776 for all of your patriotic apparel, headwear, and more. Go check out Always Ready 1776, and you can find them on the web at alwaysready1776.com. And if you do peruse their site and you do find something that you enjoy and you do purchase it, make sure you use that promo code that you see up on your screen, push to pass, to get 10% off of your order over at Always Ready 1776. picks. Also, huge thank you to Gettum Associates for all your home design, build, and remodeling needs. It's Gettum Associates, and you can find them on the web at gettum.com. And if you do choose to use their services, as you see, tell them you have the promo code right there on screen, push to pass, to receive $250 off any design service. So a huge thank you both to Always Ready 1776 and Gettum Associates for being proud sponsors of the Push to Pass podcast. All right, getting back into thermal a little bit again before we are joined by Mike to get his betting analysis for this past weekend's race. My last takeaway from the weekend obviously has to do with one gentleman and one gentleman alone, and that could be Scott Dixon. Watch out, your teammate Alex Palou. There could be a new GOAT of IndyCar in the not so distant future, in my opinion, for sure. Palou obviously won the race Sunday by only leading just 13 laps, and he ended up winning by a wide margin of over 10 seconds. Just doing a little bit of statistical analysis on Palou for the article. Can you believe, guys, in 83 starts, this is Alex Palou's line. In 83 career starts, he has 13 wins, 6 poles, 45 top 5 finishes, 60 top 10 finishes, and he is just 10 laps short of leading 1,000 for his career. Along with all of that, he's obviously collected 3 Astro Cups, and obviously, like we talked about earlier, he is searching for that back-to-back Astro Cup to join the likes of Dario Franchitti. And already, like Archie pointed out, over 2 races, Palou already has a 39-point lead, and this just leaves one to wonder right now, is there a better race strategist and driver combo than what you see with Barry Wanzer and Alex Palou?
Not in IRL, not in IndyCar. There is no one better. They know the golden rule. They know that it doesn't matter where you start; it's where you finish. And they could, they know that they could lead 1 lap or they could lead the entire race. But as long as they're leading that last lap, they are they know that they're they're going to win. And it is amazing the amount of success that he has had in just the 80 some races that he has been in. I know he's so excited. If you listen to him after every race that he wins, and they put him on they put his race audio up there and his radio audio, and he's just so excited. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not become old habit to him. It's, he's so excited, thanking his crew. He's so happy, and it's a joy just to listen to him on the radio, be so happy for him and his teammates also. He doesn't say, I did it. He says, we did it. We did it. We won. It's awesome. So, no, there is no better race strategist than Wanzer and Alex Palou right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree. Barry Wanzer is what, honestly, at the end of the day, won them that race at Thermal because of the pit strategy and keeping that red set of tires available for the end. It would have been good to see all 3 of Lundgaard, Palou, and Pato racing on fresh red tires. That would have been a great, couple laps to see who was dominant. The one thing that keeps coming to mind as we're talking about Palou and Chip Ganassi Racing. Chip Ganassi Racing's been great for a long time. I mean, we can think back to the Franchitti days, Dixon, obviously, but it just seems that since Chip Ganassi has stepped back from NASCAR, it seems like the IndyCar program has just excelled. And it doesn't matter that it seems like there is no weakness at Chip Ganassi Racing right now. And, I did see an article, and I forget who wrote it. It could have been Marshall. But they talked about, this new car that could be coming, and Chip Ganassi sounds like he doesn't want a new car. And, when you're at the top and you're winning races, I mean, his top tens, 60 top tens, that means, 23 of his races he hasn't finished in the top 10. And you don't hear a lot of mechanical issues or engine problems with Chip Ganassi Racing. So they've definitely stepped it up over the past few years, and Palou and Wands are definitely, if not the best, they're definitely fighting for the top. But yeah, it's hard to argue with that statement.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, as we were talking to Archie O'Reilly earlier, right now it's Alex Palou versus the field. And Alex Palou is just so head and shoulders above all the other drivers right now. And that's scary. Just 2 races into the 2025 season. Let's hear from one of the 3 podium finishers this weekend. First, we got to catch up a little bit.
So how do you reconcile that? You lead 51 of 65 laps, and Alex Palou wins again.
Yeah, we took a gamble. It didn't work out for us. We had used our new reds in the start because we didn't really quite know what the deck was going to be like, the deck profile. The blacks really kind of took a turn in the negative towards the end of the race, and that was it. We didn't really stand a fighting chance. But thanks for all the fans for hanging in there with us. I know broadcast kind of went off for quite some time, so thanks to you guys for tuning in, and hopefully it was somewhat of an entertainment. But Long Beach is what's coming up, and hopefully we can have a repeat weekend. Maybe one go one better.
Yeah, big picture, what do you take from this weekend? You did what you needed to do to get 11th at St. Petersburg. Now you're on the podium. Do you feel like, all right, we're in championship form now?
Yeah, I mean, we have fought for the championship every single year, and that's where I expect to be. The weekends like this is where every point does count. Every win counts for so much more, and when you just miss it by that, you definitely feel like you've left some points on the table where we would have gone again tomorrow. We maybe would have done something different, but I'm happy with the points day, and we're gonna keep pushing. It's a long season ahead, and the ovals are a different beast as well, so we need to be strong everywhere.
It's only your second race with a brand new team. It's your first podium. You've got to be happy, even though I know you were here for a little bit more this weekend.
Yeah, of course. I think the number 7 Velo Aero McLaren Chevrolet has done a very good job. The entire team's done a very good job all weekend. We just didn't have it there. I mean, we gave it a shot. We came up short, but having 2 cars on the podium, I think is as well of a day as we could have wished for coming into thermal. But just it's tough seeing this guy beat us all every single event. We got to find a way to stop him, but got to thank the fans too for sticking in there. It's a long race. It's tough, and I'm a European, so I know how the time zone difference is. So I'm sure a lot of those Europeans have been up quite late tonight.
Both to Potter Award, who finished second, and Christian Lundgaard, who finished third, to round out the podium to give us some thoughts, some post-race thoughts there. So huge thank you to them. Let's take a look at the results from Sunday's race. If you have not seen them yet, let's go through them here real quick. Obviously, the winner was Alex Palou, followed by Pato Award and Christian Lundgaard. Colton Herta, Felix Rosenquist, Will Power, Marcus Armstrong, Kyle Kirkwood, Alexander Rossi, and Scott Dixon round out your top 10. Then it was Graham Rahal, Christian Rasmussen, Joseph Newgarden, Santino Ferrucci, Kiffin Simpson, Connor Daly, Renus VK, David Malukas, Nolan Siegel, and Devlin DeFrancesca round out the top 20. Then it was Marcus Ericsson. Highest finishing rookie was Robert Schwartzman with Prima Racing. Josh's favorite, Stingray Rob, finished 23rd. Then it was Louis Foster, Jacob Abel, Callum Ilott, and Scott McLaughlin round out the top 27. Real quick, guys, any of those finishers there come as a surprise to you? Obviously, outside of Scott Dixon, anyone else come as a surprise where they finished?
I was kind of surprised about Louis Foster. He was a top 10 qualifier, and to finish the race that far down was a big surprise to me. But that's about the only one that caught my eye.
Yeah, I actually wrote about Louis Foster. It seemed like he posted on X there was something in the cockpit that really troubled them. I'm not sure what that is. Hopefully they get that fixed. The team I want to shout out is Meyer Shank Racing. I wrote about them in my winners category. This is their first time both their cars have finished in the top 10 since Mid-Ohio in 2022. So incredible job. Marcus Armstrong's doing a great job. And Felix Rosenquist's picked up where he was last year, doing well. And then big kudos to Prema Racing for getting Robert Schwartzman's car even rebuilt and on the racetrack. Had a fuel leak in first practice, and his first lap turned was in qualifying. So incredible job for them to get that car rebuilt in a timely manner and ready for qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Kudos to them for sure. Who would have thought that they could have got that done, like you said, in a timely manner? Taking a look at the point standings, I know they're probably awful tough to see there on screen. Alex Palou, Pato Award, Scott Dixon are your top three, followed by Christian Lundgaard, Felix Rosenquist, Kyle Kirkwood, Joseph Newgarden, Colton Herta, Alexander Rossi, and Scott McLaughlin round out your top 10. Then it is Marcus Armstrong, Graham Rahal, Renus VK, Will Power, Marcus Armstrong, Christian Rasmussen, Santino Ferrucci, David Malukas, Kiffin Simpson, and Connor Daly round out the top 20. Then it is Robert Schwartzman, Devlin DeFrancesca, Nolan Siegel, Callum Ilott, Stingray Robb, Jacob Abel, and the aforementioned Louis Foster round out the top 27 when it comes to points. Fellas, any guys that you see so far that have a huge hole to climb out of? I know we're only 2 races into the season, but anybody you see that has a deep hole to climb out of here so far?
Basically the entire field except for Palou. I mean, if they keep letting Palou win, they're not gonna. It doesn't matter if you finish in. It doesn't matter if you finish in second or third. You're just digging. You're letting the hole get dug deeper and deeper. Scott McLaughlin he's in a bit of a peril due to his performance this past weekend. But yeah, I think right now Palou's on cruise, and everyone else is trying to catch up to him.
Yeah, anyone that's 22nd or below, right in that cut line for the driver's circle. That's what's going to come into play towards the end of the year. But if you're looking at Scott McLaughlin, yeah, he's definitely one to watch. I look at both the AJ Foyt cars as well down there. I believe if I looked at that correctly, they're 17th and 18th. That's kind of troubling, being affiliated with Penske. And I know there's a lot of hype on both their cars this year, moving them back to Speedway, both of them. Excuse me. And then bringing in David Malukas. So yeah, those are 2 cars. And then I think of Louis Foster. Just that rookie. He's just got to get laps. Obviously crashing out there on the lap 1 turn 3 incident, and then this past weekend just having an issue. So yeah, those drivers for sure are ones to keep an eye on, and then that leader circle.
Yeah, definitely always need to keep an eye on that for sure. Before we tie a bow on the Thermal Club race and put that in the rearview mirror as we start our focus towards Long Beach, either one of you guys have any final thoughts on what we've seen this weekend?
It was a race. It wasn't an exciting race. I mean, it's something that we don't have such a long layoff between the first race and Long Beach. So I guess, I mean, it gives us something, but the IRL, they're gonna have to look if they want to keep thermal on. They may have to go back and talk to the thermal people, the thermal owner, and see if they can reconfigure this racetrack. Like Michael was saying, there's different configurations maybe to make it more competitive, so that we can get a more interesting race. But other than that, we're on to Long Beach.
Yeah, I have a few things to kind of look at going into Long Beach. Yes, Josh, it is still a 3-week break, so that's kind of troubling, especially when we look at the not the attendance bill. That's probably an issue as well. But the viewership of this past weekend, that wasn't great. The hybrid issue, that wasn't great. Fox Sports' 20-minute breaker / production truck issue. When you have 3 weeks off, these are things that need to be buttoned up and need to be corrected pretty quickly, especially when we're talking about the hybrid system. If it's a heat related issue, it's only going to get hotter throughout the season. Can you imagine if this is an Indy 500 topic we're talking about, where we have a hybrid issue and that costs someone an Indy 500 win? So those are definitely things that need to be addressed, and it's like beating a dead horse, but the schedule has got to be improved for next year. I think that's the number one thing that Doug Bowles and everyone at the IndyCar series needs to work on, is getting some scheduling issues. I don't mind a break every once in a while. If you look at, I would be okay with even like a midsummer break like Formula One has, where the teams get a little bit of break at the summer, have time with their friends and family. But I mean, this, one race, 3 weeks off, one race, 3 weeks off. And then all of a sudden we're, 6-7 weeks where we have races back to back to back. So the scheduling definitely needs to be kind of ironed out a little bit more.
Definitely great points by both Josh and Michael. We are right around the last turn. I can see the checkered flag is right there in front of us. But let's get to our news and notes section, and Michael kind of beat me to the punch there a little bit. It was kind of disappointing, maybe not, maybe very disappointing. Fox cast there, maybe a little bit of a black eye after the race on Sunday. Fox Sports did come out and determine that it, as Michael alluded to, that was a failed circuit breaker in a TV component due to obviously the high 90-degree temps was the reason that on Sunday at the Thermal Club it went dark, obviously, as a live broadcast for about 15 minutes. It was a shocking development there on site in Thermal. It killed not only the television feed, but radio broadcasting within the property for all viewers. And then Fox had to scramble. I guess they decided to run a bunch of commercials and then switch over to the NASCAR race there at Homestead in Miami. So obviously a black eye. Curious to see what Fox Sports does to improve the live broadcast of IndyCar, because like Michael alluded about the viewership again. We did get some tweets or some X, or however you mention that, earlier today, rather. First hat tip to Tyler Wong at Tyler Wong 65 on X. Friday's IndyCar practice from the Thermal Club averaged 186,000 viewers on FS1 from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Excellent numbers for a Friday practice session that drew well better than the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, because the session took place in prime time compared to the late afternoon in itself. Hat tip to Nathan Brown of the Indianapolis Star for putting this out on X earlier today, as I'm waiting for my computer to load this tweet or X to Brown and viewership. This comes as looking at the viewership numbers, as again I'm waiting for technology here to catch up. It should be loading up here on my screen here shortly. But Nathan Brown had that Fox News says it averaged an audience challenge that was broadcast on NBC, which drew a total audience of 788,000. Race peaked at 829,000 as Palou hunted down Pato Award for the lead and eventually made the race-winning move. So, fellas, those are the TV numbers for both the practice on Friday and then the race on Sunday. Care to comment on either one?
Disappointing. I mean, the practice, that was fantastic. Being able to get almost get about 150,000 people to watch the practices. That's a great thing on Friday. But the race numbers on Sunday being down from last year, I was chalking it up to the fact that the NCAA tournament was this past weekend, but it didn't stop other racing series that were going on at the exact same time from gathering over 2.2 million views. So I don't know what it is. They got to figure out how to get more people to come in and watch. I mean, a 3 a.m. race outdrew IndyCar, so something's got to be done.
Yeah, Josh, you alluded to that. I pulled those numbers. It's hard. I don't know who makes the decision. I don't know why they make the decision. I feel like TV has sometimes too much control over when these races are put on. But running a NASCAR race and an IndyCar race head-to-head with like a 5-minute green flag starting time differential is absolutely insane if you're trying to build any sort of audience. So, you alluded to the F1 race that started at 3 a.m. That got 824,000 viewers. So definitely, running races, simultaneously, then having the blackout, that didn't help. It didn't sound like the numbers were great before the blackout. So yeah, definitely. And then the 3-week break. I mean, we talked about, Fox, we have every race, but if fans don't know when the races are, and it seemed like the commercials from what I've seen have kind of died down a little bit. So definitely need to kind of boost those up, before, the race weekend to let people know that the race is this weekend. So, when you're trying to build an audience, you can't take weeks and weeks off. It's kind of hard to build.
Yeah, fellas, as always, great, excellent points there, especially when it comes to viewership and what IndyCar is trying to build on their new broadcast there on Fox. But as I look ahead, I see, fellas, that the checkered flag is waving, and that means that concludes another episode here on the Push to Pass podcast. I want to thank Archie O'Reilly of the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast for joining us. Also want to thank everyone out there that tuned in, watched, or listened. And then also, too, as always, huge thank you both to Josh and Michael for joining me here on a regular basis to talk all things IndyCar. We'll be back, I think, next week? Or is there another break there before Long Beach? I think
we have a break.
There is another week there before Long Beach. We'll have to see. Have to talk and see what we decide to do there for that week, but definitely looking forward to the race there on the streets of Long Beach on April 13th. So for myself and Josh and Michael and everyone else that makes up the Push to Pass podcast, thanks for everyone tuning in, and we will talk to you in a few weeks there, talking about the race that's coming up on the streets of Long Beach. So until then, so long, everybody.
Alex Palou, you have started this season perfect. Back-to-back wins. I love seeing this embrace. Just tell me this relationship with you and your team. It's just so amazing to see. Just tell everybody about it.
Thank you all. Thank you all the fans. And I heard that there was some issues with the broadcast, so sorry to all the fans and thank you for sticking with us. But what an amazing weekend. Honestly, we had a really fast car since practice. Thank you, boss. And they executed very well. Everybody at Chip Ganassi Racing, the tank car, executed perfectly. We knew it was aggressive to start with the used reds, and we knew that we were looking towards the end of the race with that tank car. And yeah, we did it. So back-to-back wins feels awesome.
What do you know about these Firestone tires that seemingly no one else does? You do things on strategy that other people just can't. Can you share even a little bit how you manage to do it week in, week out?
No, I don't know. I have a great team, honestly. Like they give me a great car that I can manage, that I feel comfortable with, and they make it look easy. So they do all the work. I just try and make it happen.
You're not even sweating, but congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.